We are now aware of the general characteristics on basis of which the kingdom Animalia is divided into different phylums. Now, there is a greater classification instead of those phylums. Those phylums are yet again classified into a greater classification, that is, the whole in animal kingdom is divided into two main categories, one being those of chordates and other being the non-chordates. So, if you can see over here, this is the broadest classification that we have in the case of animals. Now, if you talk about yourself, you are a chordate, and if you hold an insect in your hand, supposedly if you are thinking about a cockroach, we study about cockroach as well, that cockroach is a non-chordate. Now, why do I call that chordate and non-chordate? Before going to that, we must see that what would be there in chordates and non-chordates and what would be there entirely in the animal kingdom. So, what we have is that the classification, I have mentioned the various classes over here. The broad classification is based on the common fundamental factors, and what were those fundamental factors, if you can recall? One of that was symmetry, which could be radial or it could be bilateral. The second one was the presence of coelom, which makes the organism acoelomate, pseudocoelomate or a true coelomate organism. And then there was a classification that was broader, that whether the organism is having notochord in some or other stage of life, then it would be a chordate, and if it is not having that notochord, it will not be a chordate, it would be a non-chordate. So, let us see the classification. All these names written over here are the phylums which are non-chordates. That means there is something which would be present inside the chordates that is not present in these non-chordates. And what is that thing which something I said? It is a notochord. We will come to what is notochord, but before that, see this. These are the phylums which have been mentioned. As you can see over here, these are 10 phylums, 10 different phylums of the animal kingdom, where the animals are not having notochord present inside their body. This is phylum Porifera, or the other name for this is the sponges. Over here we have discussed the examples, and we have over here the cell level arrangement, cell aggregate level arrangement. So, how can you expect the next characteristics to be present? This is the simplest phylum of the animal kingdom, and that comprises mainly the sponges. You must be knowing about bath sponge and rest of the sponges which are present, and these are usually marine. Then we have Coelenterata. Every one of you must be knowing about Hydra, because we do draw diagrams of Hydra in our younger classes just to illustrate the process of budding. So, most of us get introduced to the process of budding by using the example of Hydra, that Hydra is a freshwater coelenterate, or a cnidarian as we call it. The other name for this phylum is Cnidaria, and I would use the example of Hydra. And the jellyfishes, you might have heard about those dangerous organisms which come and kill people. They are the jellyfishes, and they belong to this phylum Cnidaria. Now, why this phylum has the name Cnidaria, we will come to know, because of their stinging cells. As I told you, that dangerous organism that kills people with its stinging cells. Then we have phylum Ctenophora. Phylum Ctenophora is otherwise known as comb jellies phylum. So, this is going to have comb jellies in these in this phylum. Then we have the platyhelminths, which are flatworms. Before moving further, let us talk about the grades and what characteristics are present till this level. See, phylum Porifera was about cell aggregate plan. This is also somewhat cell aggregate plan, but you have tissue level over here, but tissues are not differentiated into organs. These two phylums are part and parcel of a single phylum, but nowadays it has been taken out. Ctenophora has been classified into another phylum just for one reason, that is the triploblastic nature, that is the number of germ layers that it has are different from these this Coelenterata. And till here, these are asymmetric. This part is radially symmetric. Okay, this part is radially symmetric, the upper one is asymmetric. Whatever follows next is bilaterally symmetrical. Now we have platyhelminths. When we come to the level of platyhelminths, we have achieved the triploblastic nature. That is, the organisms are going to have three germ layers. We had discussed three germ layers, namely endoderm, mesoderm and ectoderm. So the triploblastic nature arrives at this phylum, that is platyhelminths, and they are usually parasites which are present on the animals. The animals they themselves are, and they are parasitic on other animals, and they are the flatworms. Then we have the Aschelminths. These are the roundworms. Now you see, as we have started the triploblastic part over here, what is going to come next is coelom. Till here we didn't have any coelom because there were not even three layers. Now that three layers have arrived, we are going to have body cavity and the fluid would be present inside it, the coelomic fluid. Now we are going to talk about coelom. These are acoelomates, and over here we start with pseudocoelomate nature. The rest of the phylums are going to have true coelom. Whatever follows Aschelminths, that is going to have true coelom. Then we have Annelida. Annelida is the classic case of earthworm. Okay. Then we have Arthropoda, the insects. All the insects are part of phylum Arthropoda, and not just insects, there are arachnids, and we are going to discuss those classes just by name so that you have an understanding. This is the largest phylum of animal kingdom. If you take 10 animals on this earth, like for every 10 animals, I would say 7 of them would be arthropods. So much is their diversity. If I am saying that 70% of animals are arthropods, it means that most of them are insects. Okay, next is Mollusca. This is the second most abundant phylum, and it includes the snails, the octopus, the squids and rest of the organisms. Then we come to the starfishes, that is Echinodermata, and over here what we are seeing is, here we have bilateral symmetry, this is bilateral symmetry, all these are bilaterally symmetrical. Now that coelom has also arrived, now we are going to see the symmetry and rest of complexities arriving, and you must pay attention. Now that coelom has arrived, we are going to have organ system grade as well. Now organs start showing over here. Okay, here we have complete tube within tube plan. Now when we have tube within tube plan, you can make it out that I am talking about alimentary canal, that is your gut, and not your gut of these animals. The gut is responsible for proper nutrition purpose, and whatever organisms are present over here, they do not have complete tube within tube plan. Their body cavity is incomplete. I'm sorry, it's not body cavity, it's the alimentary canal. It is incomplete. There is single opening. When we arrive over here, we have two openings for the alimentary canal, and whatever follows, the rest all have such arrangement. Now we have organ system that comes over here, and with every phylum, every increasing phylum, the complexity would increase. Just there is a exception of Echinodermata, and you have to keep one thing in mind, that as we study these phylums, we are going to keep in mind their larval stages as well, because we do study the larva also. At times what happens, there are certain developments which are shown in larval stages that are absent in adults, because you know that larva undergoes metamorphosis. Now what is metamorphosis? Metamorphosis is the complete change of the larval stage into adult, and you would be surprised to know that there is least resemblance of a larva with the adult organism. So we do have the insight of studying the larval stages as well, so that whatever information could be acquired for classification comes in our hand, and we classify the organism accordingly, instead of a vague classification that does not take into account their larval stages. Okay, now this phylum Echinodermata is simple otherwise in comparison to these phylums, these three phylums, but it has been placed at the 9th position. We put these phylums in position according to their complexity. See, this was the simplest. When we arrive over here, we have hemichordata, that means half of the chordate characteristics. We have hemichordata, and Echinodermata, as I told you, though being simpler, It has been placed at the 9th position, reason being its larva is complex as compared to the rest of larval stages, and that is why we have Echinodermata. Adult stage is quite simple, but the larval stage is complex, that is why we have it over here. Then we come to Hemichordata. They are half of like chordates. They are exclusively marine organisms, and they earlier were classified in chordates, but later on it was the criteria for classification of organisms into the category of non-chordates and chordates changed, and hemichordates were placed in non-chordates itself. Now talk about chordates. Chordates is itself a phylum. Chordates are classified under phylum Chordata. These ones, they are also phylums, and when I talk about chordates, that is also a phylum. When we start with chordates, you are going to see the entire diversity that you know about organisms. These things you might not be knowing in that much depth, but what we are going to study in chordates you would be knowing, because fishes are also chordates, birds are also chordates, amphibians are also chordates, reptiles are also chordates, and of course mammals are also chordates. So what would be the criteria for classification in the case of chordates? We are going to see the classes. Okay, we have further division of chordate phylum Chordata into the classes, and each class is of equal importance for its study. So we have to see the characteristics at the class level. In these we just need to know what all classes are there just in order to take the idea of examples, but we need not to understand what is the characteristic of each class. We just have to see the salient features that each phylum has, according to which the classification has been made, and we have to see the classes just to get an idea that these are the examples, these are the particular examples. But in case of chordates, we are going to see classes individually, where we will have the classes which exclusively comprise of fishes, then there would be a class for amphibians, then there would be a class for reptiles, then for birds, and then finally for the mammals, which have the most advanced organisms on this earth, and that is we human beings. We are the most advanced organism on the earth, and that is part of chordates. Now let us see how a chordate and non-chordate is different. First thing is that there has to be absence of notochord, as I told you, in the case of non-chordates, and chordates are going to have notochord at some stage of their development. Now if I ask you, what is the part of your body which has notochord inside it? You do not have notochord. Then how can we be classified in chordates? We do not have notochord. As I told you, the organism has to have a notochord. Then how can the organisms which do not have notochord, as a case of ours and rest of the mammals, how can they be classified in chordates? The answer is that it should be present at some developmental stage. It can be replaced by some other part in the development stages or the later stages of organism, but it has to be present. And in our case, and not just in our case, when we study about chordates, we come across a term known as vertebrates. I am going to remove this, because now we are on a broader classification, that is knowing about notochord and rest things. So what you see over here is that the notochord has to be present at some stage, and talking about the vertebrates. Now what are vertebrates? Vertebrates are those organisms which have vertebral column. When we talk about vertebrates, the notochord becomes nucleus pulposus. See, this name is to be remembered. Now what is this and where it is present? This is the part of intervertebral disc. Now where is this intervertebral disc? You know about your vertebral column, that is your backbone. We in simple terms call it backbone. The backbone has many vertebral discs, and that vertebral disc has the nucleus pulposus. A part of it is nucleus pulposus, and from where it has been derived? It has been derived from the notochord. Now when is this notochord present in our body? This notochord is present in our body in the embryological stages, that is when we are in the womb of our mothers. At that stage our body has notochord, which is derived from mesoderm. So notochord has a mesodermal origin, okay, and during developmental stages of embryo, that is embryogenesis, this notochord, it serves the purpose of site of muscle attachment. It is the main site where the muscles come and get attached. It is the mid dorsal line basically. So this thing is to be remembered. the mid dorsal line, and it is somewhat derived from the same material that makes the cartilage. So notochord is the primitive cartilage, you can say, okay. It is of mesodermal origin. It is similar as its material is similar to that of cartilage. It is present as a mid dorsal line, and this mid dorsal line serves as the site of muscle attachment. So it has a very important role during the embryogenesis and developmental stages in the embryonic level of growth, and this notochord later gets replaced, and it is used up and it gets replaced in the intervertebral disc in the case of vertebrates. Other organisms, they have persistent notochord and they are simple chordates. So when the chordates are going to get complex, the classes of the chordates is getting complexer, you would see that notochord would be in any case replaced. Now next is that first one was notochord, second is perforated gill slits. Now what is perforated by gill slits? The pharynx is perforated by gill slits. Now I do not have gill slits, you also do not have gill slits, as you can make it out. Where are these gill slits gone? These are the pharyngeal gill slits, yet again they are present in the embryonic stages. If some organism has its gill slits present in the later stages as well, that would be automatically a chordate, but in case the organism is not having those gill slits, then also it could be a chordate if it has it in if it has these gill slits in embryonic stages. And pharyngeal gill slits present at some stage of life. These animals which are non-chordates, they do not have. Then we talk about nerve cord. What is nerve cord? That spinal cord we can call it. It is present in the vertebral column, which was made by notochord. Notochord is a rod-like structure. Nerve cord is, it becomes hollow and the nerve cord is present inside the notochord. Nerve cord, if present, there are certain cases you cannot find nerve cord. Right now we were discussing that there are stages when you do not even have organs. So how can you have nerve cord? If the nerve cord is present in certain non-chordates, it would be double. You will see it in the case of cockroach, that is classic double ventral nerve cord it is having, and the nerve cord lies ventral. It is not present dorsally. Talk about yourselves, you have a dorsal nerve cord that is towards your back. So we have single, dorsal and hollow nerve cord through which the spinal cord goes. Okay, the nerve cord is basically the vertebral columns, that cord inside which the spinal cord would be going. It would be hollow and it would be single. As you know, you do not have two nerve cords so that two spinal cords could be fit. It is singular and it is hollow. It is dorsal. Last is heart, if present, is dorsal in position, that means it would be towards back, and in the case of chordates, heart is ventral. Take your own case, you have a ventral heart. Also, if you can remember, in the case of non-chordates, the heart is neurogenic, and in the case of chordates, the heart is myogenic. Our heart is myogenic, you must be knowing it. So neurogenic heart is characteristic of non-chordates, while myogenic heart is character of chordates. Now what is myogenic, what is neurogenic? Myogenic is that it is made up of mesoderm, one thing. Second is that the muscles would be able to generate their own impulse and heartbeat would start because of the muscles of heart itself, not by the nervous system. Moving further, we have the classic example which shows how a non-chordate is different from a chordate. What you can see over here is, this is a hypothetical chordate and this is a hypothetical non-chordate. Now we are going to see the characters just in a diagrammatic representation. What you see is that there is a notochord present which is absent in this case. Secondly, you find the pharyngeal gill slits which are present in the alimentary canal. This is the alimentary canal that has been shown, that lies towards the ventral side. Over here we do not find any pharyngeal gill slits if the alimentary canal is present, because we have even the cell grade level in the non-chordates. Okay, moving further, you see the nerve cord. Over in the chordate it is dorsal, while in the case of non-chordate there is a double ventral nerve cord. This is double ventral nerve cord, as you can see over here. This might not be clear to you, but it would be if it has been shown in 2 dimension. In case if you are seeing it like this, it would be like this. Okay, double ventral nerve cord, you can relate it with a railway track, just like a railway track is double those, there are two bars which run parallel to each other. Same would be the nerve cord in the case of non-chordates. You have a dorsal blood vessel. In case they are having a well developed circulatory system, as shown over here, they are having a good heart, well developed, not good heart, that won't be the right term, a well developed heart. Over here, if they do not have well developed heart, they would be having a dorsal blood vessel that is present, and this is what we have to understand about the difference between non-chordates and chordates. Another thing that we have missed is that a chordate animal will have a post-anal tail. Okay, over here what you see is that the alimentary canals opening, this is mouth and this is the anal opening, that is at the end of the body. In case of non-chordates, it is such that the anus would be present at the end of the body, but in the case of chordate, what you find is that the posterior opening of the alimentary canal, it could be followed by post-anal tail. Now yet again, if you have doubts that we do not have post-anal tail, that is present in our embryonic stages. Moving further, we are going to deal with non-chordate phylums individually. In our syllabus, we have to see the salient features of non-chordates. What are the salient features which make it the classification criteria for a particular phylum? So let us take a total overview. If we have to put all the non-chordates differently and just getting, because we have to start understanding what we have in the non-chordates. First thing is that there are more non-chordates on earth than chordates, that is clear, because I give you the example that for every 10 animals you are going to find 7 of them belonging to phylum Arthropoda. They do not have internal skeletons. So what do they have if they do not have internal skeleton? Some have simply soft bodies devoid of skeleton, others might have exoskeleton, that is hard outer covering. Here also I am going to give you the example of cockroach. It is having chitinous exoskeleton. Like if you crush a cockroach under your feet, if you have done it ever, it gives a sound of cracking, and that cracking sound is because of the chitinous exoskeleton that is breaking. That means it is not present inside the body, rather it is present outside the body. As you can see over here, this part, this darker one, bold part, is representing the exoskeleton of a non-chordate. Okay, and lastly we have the examples. There are insects, there are spiders, there are mollusks, worms, sea stars, as we call them, starfishes, there are crustaceans. I can quote a few more. There are hemichordates, there are fishes, there are birds, there are reptiles, there are so many animals. No, I was wrong. I am not going to quote the example of fishes over here. We are talking about non-chordates, not animals. So do not take the example of fishes and these birds. We are talking about starfish, crustaceans, worms, mollusks, spider, insects. I can give you the example of corals that are present, huge coral reefs being made out of phylum Cnidaria. Then there are comb jellies, as we talked about. We have so many parasites which come and infect our bodies. All these organisms are going to be non-chordates. And what is the classification criteria? Let us understand one by one. Individually, each phylum will be studied and the salient features are to